Two bodies in a garage. A 6-year-old girl sleeping upstairs, completely unaware her entire world just ended. But the real crime? It happened 6 years earlier at a high school reunion. Imagine finding out the child you've raised, loved, and called your own for 6 years isn't yours. Imagine discovering this through a simple DNA test you ordered for what you thought was an innocent school project. Now imagine finding out your wife not only lied about this for 6 years, but she's been secretly messaging the biological father behind your back. What would you do? Derek Bane knew exactly what he'd do, and on December 13th, 2023, he did it. I'm going to tell you a story that will make you question everything you think you know about trust, betrayal, and how far a broken man will go when his entire reality crumbles. But I need to warn you, this case goes to some very dark places. Stay with me, because the twist that destroyed this family will leave you speechless. Before we dive into this psychological nightmare, let me ask you something that will haunt you by the end of this video. What's the one betrayal you could never forgive? Remember your answer, because you might change your mind. If stories like this fascinate you, hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to reveal will challenge every assumption you have about family, love, and revenge. And drop a comment telling me, could you forgive a lie this big? Now, let's meet the family that everyone thought was perfect. The Banes looked like they stepped out of a magazine. Derek, 43, the kind of man who fixed his neighbor's lawnmowers without being asked. Monique, 41, the woman who remembered everyone's birthday and brought homemade cookies to every school event. Their kids, Cameron, 11, honor roll student, Elijah, 9, soccer star, and Jordan, 6 years old, the surprise baby who had Derek wrapped around her tiny finger from the moment she was born. Picture this. Every Sunday, third pew from the front at Antioch Baptist Church. Every school event, Derek and Monique were there, front row, cheering louder than anyone. Derek built Jordan's swing set with his own hands. Monique organized 3 consecutive school fundraisers. But here's what their neighbors didn't see. Monique had been carrying a secret so devastating that every single day of the past 6 years had been a performance. Every time Jordan called Derek daddy, every time he tucked her in at night, every time he cried watching her kindergarten graduation, Monique knew he wasn't her biological father. But the secret gets worse. Much worse. July 2016, 20-year high school reunion in Atlanta. Monique kissed Derek goodbye, promised to text, and boarded that Greyhound bus with a smile. She was excited, former homecoming queen, head cheerleader, the girl everyone wanted to see. Derek trusted her completely. Why wouldn't he? She'd never given him reason not to. At that reunion, Monique ran into 2 men from her past. Xavier Reese, star football player who used to flirt with her while Derek sat quietly behind. And DeMarcus Kent, Xavier's friend. Quiet, easygoing, the type who stays in shadows. Hotel room. Too much alcohol. Old attractions, bad decisions. What happened wasn't supposed to follow her home. But 9 months later, Jordan was born. Derek held that baby, tears streaming, calling her his miracle. For 6 years he loved her like his own blood. Because he thought she was, but secrets surface, and this one was about to explode. Fast forward to October 2023. Derek couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. Not dramatically, just off. Think about your relationship. You know when something feels different, right? How your partner moves, talks, breathes next to you. Monique was there, functioning, but emotionally 1,000 miles away. Phone always face down, always locked. Conversations stopped when Derek entered rooms. She wouldn't meet his eyes when neighbors commented how Jordan looked nothing like her siblings. One night, Derek saw Monique smiling at her phone, really smiling, the way she used to smile at him. When she noticed him, She quickly locked the screen. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just something funny someone sent," she said, reaching for a dish towel. But her voice was different, distant, almost guilty. That night, Derek couldn't sleep. That's when the idea formed, an idea that would destroy everything. Imagine ordering DNA test kits for your own children. The sick feeling as you click purchase on something that could shatter your world. Derek stared at that computer screen 20 minutes. This wasn't the man he wanted to be. Suspicious, paranoid, investigating his family like a criminal case. But he couldn't shake it. Jordan's eyes were different. Her smile, how she tilted her head. Thinking. Little things nagging him for months. When kits arrived, Derek lied. "School project," he told Monique. "Genetics unit." She didn't question it. Why would she? He swabbed Cameron's cheek, then Elijah's, then Jordan's. She giggled when the cotton touched her gums, that sweet laugh that would haunt Derek forever. 2 weeks of walking through life normally while counting down to explosion. 2 weeks tucking Jordan in, reading stories, helping homework, wondering if she was really his daughter. Results arrived Tuesday morning. They destroyed Derek's world. Cameron, 99.9% match. Elijah, 99.9% match. Jordan, 0% match. Not his daughter. 0 shared DNA. Imagine staring at those numbers. Imagine reading them 3 times, hoping you misunderstood. Imagine printing the results and staring at that paper until your coffee goes cold. 6 years of "Daddy, look what I made." 6 years of "I love you more than all the stars." 6 years of believing you're raising your miracle baby. Gone. Deleted. Erased. By 3 little numbers on a screen. Derek didn't explode. He didn't scream. He didn't throw anything. He just sat there, completely still, as his entire reality collapsed around him. But here's what's really terrifying about this moment. Derek didn't immediately confront Monique. No, he did something much more calculated, much more dangerous. He started planning. The man who walked upstairs that night was different from the one who'd opened that email. Calmer, colder, more focused. Because now, Derek needed the whole truth, and he knew exactly how to get it. Picture Derek sitting in his living room watching his wife scroll through her phone on the couch. The woman he'd trusted with everything, the mother of his children, the keeper of his deepest secret. Except it wasn't his secret. It was hers. "Monique," he said, his voice eerily calm, "I want to ask you something." She looked up, surprised by his tone. "Okay, what is it? Is there anything you've ever kept from me? Anything at all?" You could see the panic flash across her face for just a split second before she forced a nervous laugh. "Babe, no. What are you talking about? Why would you ask me that?" Derek didn't respond. He just stared at her, really looked at her. And then, after a long, devastating pause, he said one word. "Jordan." The room changed instantly. Monique's eyes widened, her whole face shifted, and in that moment she knew that 6 years of lies were about to come crashing down. "What about her?" she whispered, afraid of the answer. "I did something I never thought I'd do," Derek said, still calm. "I needed to know, so I got DNA tests for all 3 kids. I told them it was for school, but it wasn't." Monique's hands started shaking. "I got the results 2 weeks ago. Cameron and Elijah are mine, no doubt, but Jordan." He didn't need to finish. The silence said everything. Through tears and broken sentences, Monique finally admitted everything. The reunion, the hotel room, Xavier and DeMarcus, the threesome that created Jordan. "It was one night," she sobbed. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I had been drinking. I don't even remember all of it. I never thought I'd get pregnant. I never thought it would follow me home." But Derek was already doing the math. July 2016. Jordan, born in April 2017. 9 months exactly.
I didn't know what to do.
Monique continued through her tears. And then you were so happy, you started painting the nursery. You called her your angel. I couldn't take that from you. I couldn't take her away. Imagine hearing this. Imagine discovering that every bedtime story, every scraped knee you kissed better, every proud moment at school plays and soccer games, all of it built on a lie. Derek stood up, grabbed his jacket and keys. "Where are you going?" Monique asked, panic rising. "I don't know," he said without looking at her, "but I can't be here right now." He drove north and checked into a rundown motel outside Clarksville. For 2 days, he disappeared completely. No calls, no texts. The man who checked into that motel was still trying to save his marriage. The man who checked out was planning something else entirely. Derek came home, pretending everything was going to be okay, pretending he could forgive and move forward. But he was actually gathering intelligence. One night, while Monique was in the shower, Derek did something he'd never done in 11 years of marriage. He went through her phone. What he found made his blood freeze. Recent Facebook messages with Xavier Reese, the biological father of his daughter. "You still look good, lol. Stop. I'm just saying. Innocent enough for a divorce court? Devastating enough for a broken husband who'd spent 6 years raising another man's child while being lied to every single day. This wasn't just a mistake from 2016, this was an open wound. A connection that never ended. A betrayal that was still bleeding. And that's when Derek realized something that would change everything. This wasn't about moving forward. This wasn't about forgiveness or therapy or working it out. This was about ending it. All of it. Permanently. Imagine that moment. Imagine that realization settling into your chest like ice water. Everything you thought you knew about moving forward, about healing, about second chances, gone. What Derek did next transformed him from victim to something much more dangerous. Derek's logistics training kicked in. He wasn't thinking emotionally anymore. He was solving a problem. And he had identified 3 components to this problem. Problem 1, Xavier Reese, the biological father who was still flirting with his wife. Problem 2, Monique, the woman who had lied to him for 6 years and was apparently still lying. Problem 3, the ongoing deception that would never end as long as both of them were alive. Using Monique's phone, Derek sent a message to Xavier, kept it casual, friendly adult. "Hey, this is awkward, but Derek knows everything. He wants to meet face to face, man to man. Put this whole thing behind us like adults." Xavier, thinking Derek was being mature about the situation, agreed. "I respect that. When and where?" Derek suggested Cedar Ridge Park. Open area, public, safe feeling, just 2 men having a difficult but necessary conversation. What Xavier didn't know was that Derek had already made a decision that would end both their lives. Derek owned a .38 revolver, legal, registered. He'd had it for home protection for years, but now it had a new purpose. The weapon was ready. The meeting was set. The plan was in motion. But Derek had one more stop to make before this was over. December 13th, 2023, a date that would haunt Nashville forever. Derek told Monique he was going for a drive to clear his head. Instead, he met Xavier at Cedar Ridge Park. No dramatic confrontation, no yelling, just 2 men discussing a complicated situation. Derek was calm, almost friendly. He thanked Xavier for agreeing to meet, said he appreciated his willingness to handle this like an adult. "Look," Derek said, "this is hard for all of us, but I think we can work through this. Why don't you come back to my house? Monique wants to talk too, clear the air, put everything behind us." Xavier, believing Derek was handling this with remarkable maturity, agreed. Fatal mistake. They drove separately to the Bane house. Derek arrived first, opened the garage door, and waited. At 9:23 p.m., Xavier pulled into the driveway. Derek walked outside with a smile on his face. "Thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate this." He led Xavier into the garage. Casual conversation, no tension, no hints about what was about to happen. But upstairs, Monique heard voices, male voices, in her garage, and when she came downstairs to see what was happening, she found Derek and Xavier standing face to face in the garage, and she knew her 6-year secret had finally come home to kill her. What happened next lasted less than 3 minutes, but it destroyed 3 children's lives forever. Derek didn't give a speech, didn't explain himself, didn't provide dramatic final words. He pulled out the .38 revolver and shot Xavier twice, once in the neck, once in the head. Xavier dropped instantly. Monique screamed and tried to run. Derek caught her at the garage entrance and shot her once in the chest, straight through the heart. Then silence. 2 bodies on the garage floor, blood pooling beneath them like spilled paint, shell casings scattered on concrete. Upstairs, 6-year-old Jordan slept peacefully with her stuffed bunny, completely unaware that both her parents, biological and psychological, had just died in the room below her. Derek stood there for a full minute, looking at what he'd done. Then he methodically cleaned up. He wrapped the gun in duct tape, drove 2 blocks to a storm drain, and disposed of it. He came home, showered, and went to bed, next to the aftermath of his decision. The next morning, when Derek didn't show up for work, a concerned co-worker drove to the house. What he found would haunt Nashville for years. But Derek was already gone. For 48 hours, Derek Bane disappeared. No credit card usage, phone turned off, vehicle missing. Police issued statewide alerts, thinking they were chasing a man on the run. But Derek wasn't running. He was circling. Like a wounded animal, trying to decide if it wanted to live or die. Imagine being in Derek's headspace during those 48 hours. You've just murdered 2 people. Your children are now orphans. Your life as you knew it is over. Where do you go? What do you think about? The manhunt ended on December 16th at a Shell gas station in Franklin, Tennessee. A patrol officer noticed a gray SUV parked awkwardly at pump 4. The man behind the wheel wasn't moving, just sitting there, sunglasses on, motor running. When the officer ran the plates, everything changed. Backup arrived within minutes. Officers approached with weapons drawn but voices steady. "Sir, we need you to exit the vehicle." Derek didn't resist. He raised his hands slowly, opened the door, stepped out. No drama. No final standoff. Just tired acceptance. But what he said next would become part of Nashville police law forever. As they placed him in handcuffs, Derek spoke without being prompted. "I gave her everything. I raised that little girl like she was mine. I could have handled the cheating, but not the lying, not for 6 years. Those words were entered into the arrest report verbatim. Cold, heavy, final. At Davidson County Jail, Derek gave a full confession. No lawyer present initially, no negotiation, just truth. "I gave her everything," he repeated to detectives. "I loved her more than she deserved. But 6 years of lies? That's murder of the soul." He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Bail was denied immediately. The man who had built swing sets and attended PTA meetings was now facing life in prison without parole. But here's what shocked investigators. Derek showed no remorse, no regret, no signs of mental breakdown. He was calm, rational, completely at peace with what he'd done. "Those 2 people destroyed my family," he told detectives. "I just returned the favor." The psychological evaluations would later reveal something terrifying. Derek Bane wasn't insane. He wasn't having a psychotic break. He had simply decided that betrayal deserved death, and he'd acted on that decision with cold precision. The trial would become one of Nashville's most controversial cases, not because of what Derek did, but because of how many people secretly understood why he did it. The state of Tennessee versus Derek Bane began on March 4, 2024. The courthouse overflowed with people who came not just to witness justice, but to understand how something like this could happen. The prosecution painted Derek as a cold-blooded killer who chose murder over divorce. They presented surveillance footage, ballistic evidence, the taped murder weapon retrieved from the storm drain. This wasn't an act of passion, the lead prosecutor stated. This was an execution, planned, calculated, and delivered with precision. But the defense told a different story, one that resonated with more people than anyone expected. They called it paternal fraud, a betrayal so fundamental, so psychologically devastating, that it shattered Derek's emotional foundation completely. Two clinical psychologists testified that discovering you've raised another man's child for 6 years can cause complete psychological collapse. You lose your reality, one expert explained. You question your entire existence. But the most powerful testimony came from Derek himself. Dressed in a navy suit, shackled at the ankles, Derek took the stand with a steady voice and clear eyes. "How did you feel when you got those DNA results?" his defense attorney asked. Derek stared directly at the jury and said, "I felt like I had died and just hadn't fallen down yet." He talked about Jordan, about rocking her to sleep, about teaching her to ride a bike, about crying at her kindergarten graduation because he loved her more than life itself. "I didn't wake up and decide to kill anyone," Derek said. "I woke up and realized I had already died 6 years ago, the day I held her in that hospital and said, 'She's mine.' But she wasn't." The courtroom was completely silent. April 2nd, 2024. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty on all counts. Derek showed no reaction. He'd already accepted that the rest of his life would be spent behind bars. 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 15 years for child endangerment. But the real sentence was being served by 3 children who would carry this trauma forever. Cameron, now 11, and Elijah, 9, were placed with their maternal aunt. They moved to East Nashville, changed schools, started therapy. Cameron stopped celebrating her birthday. Elijah asked every day when his daddy was coming home. And Jordan, 6 years old, in specialized trauma therapy, asking her counselor the question that broke everyone's heart, "Am I the reason my mummy went away?" The court sealed all paternity records until Jordan turns 18. She may never know the full truth about who she is or why everything she loved fell apart in one night. Derek was issued a permanent no-contact order. No letters, no calls, no. He will never see his children again. When asked if he wanted to appeal, Derek told his attorney, "They deserve peace. I had my chance." It was the first time he'd shown any remorse since the night he pulled that trigger. This case forces us to confront the most uncomfortable truth about human nature: how quickly ordinary people can become monsters when their reality crumbles. Derek didn't just discover his wife cheated, he discovered that every "I love you, Daddy" from Jordan for 6 years was based on a lie. Monique watched him teach Jordan to ride a bike, cry at her school plays, call her his miracle, and chose to deceive him every single day. Here's what makes this terrifying. Derek wasn't violent until he killed 2 people. He was an ordinary man who made an extraordinary choice when faced with unbearable betrayal. Where was the breaking point? When Monique had that threesome? When she didn't tell the truth when Jordan was born? When she kept messaging Xavier? When Derek ordered those DNA tests, or when he chose murder over divorce. Every lie enabled the next deception. Until 3 children were orphaned by choices made before they could even understand what family meant. Derek was both a loving father and a double murderer. Monique tried to protect her family and destroyed it. These were ordinary people who made devastating choices with permanent consequences. The most dangerous secrets are the ones we think are protecting people. So, what would you have done? Could you forgive a 6-year deception? Could you raise a child knowing they weren't biologically yours? Or would something inside you break permanently? Let me know in the comments. If this story affected you, share it and subscribe for more cases that challenge everything you think you know about human nature. Thanks for watching. Stay honest. Stay safe. And remember, trust, but verify.